In the world about us today, there are about 500,000 species of animals. Most of these were domesticated by man before history began.
It took thousands of years to tame them, but these animals returned to their wild ways in a hot minute. This is the other side of domestication. These are the feral animals. Hi, I'm Danielle Dufault, and you're watching Animalogic Second Nature. We've talked before on the channel about the domestication of animals, but what happens when domesticated animals rewild themselves? There are about 50 species of animals that have been domesticated by humans. To be successfully domesticated, animals need to have 6 characteristics. They need a diverse appetite, but doesn't overlap too much with human food. They need to grow and mature quickly to make it worth it for humans to invest the time and effort to raise them. They have to be willing to breed in captivity and be docile enough to handle. And they need to be social creatures, and ones that don't get too scared by their human captors. Feral animals, on the other hand, are previously domesticated creatures that have escaped captivity and have the ability to survive without human care. If you live in a city, you're no stranger to the feral pigeons all around you that are descended from domesticated rock doves. You'll also know that these scrappy birds don't need a lick of human care to thrive. Except all of our garbage. But that's really stretching the definition of the word care. OG Animalogic fans will remember that our second episode ever was on pigeons. It was actually our first episode, but they aired out of order. That's neither here nor there. I love pigeons, and thankfully the rest of the world might soon be catching up.
Pigeons, love or hate them?
Hate them.
A scourge on the city.
Get rid of them. They're a nuisance. Look at all the crap on the ground.
They're really dumb.
They're really ugly.
Well, maybe not, but I love pigeons, and so do my friends Lucas and Laura from No Brainers, who I'm super excited to introduce you to. They just released an episode on the tragic origin story of the pigeon, and they take to the streets to seek justice for this once important animal. And Lucas becomes a foster dad to a baby pigeon called Cinnamon.
Oh my gosh, which one?
The video's hilarious and informative. You're gonna love it.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions about pigeons?
Please go subscribe to their channel and watch their video on pigeons by clicking the link here, or by following the link in the description and leave a comment saying I sent you. And while you're there, check out all the other awesome videos on their channel. No Brainers is a group of non-experts that tackle all sorts of questions, from engineering to biology and psychology. They're very funny and full of curiosity and energy. If you like Animalogic, you're going to love No Brainers. Don't forget to click the link in the description and subscribe to their channel. They'll appreciate the support. But now, back to more animals that have rewilded themselves. The word feral itself comes from the Latin fera, meaning wild beast. But feral now means anything that can be domesticated and has returned to the wild, including plants. Feralization is the opposite of domestication, which is the process of us humans adopting organisms through artificial selection. As you can imagine, artificial selection itself is the opposite of natural selection, which happens when organisms in the wild slowly adapt to their environment to survive. Artificial selection involves humans controlling the breeding of domesticated organisms to achieve physical, and in the case of animals, behavioral traits that are more ideal for our needs. An example of this would be selectively breeding long and low-to-the-ground doggies, like dachshunds, to assist us in hunting burrowing animals.
More power, more dogs. And now Joe is the proud owner of a 6-dog-powered sedan. Under certain conditions, the Bow Wow buggy has some pretty peppy getaway, too.
Feralization is what happens when animals return to the wild and start reproducing without human intervention. Often, these feral organisms will revert back to characteristics of their truly wild ancestors. Since feral animals often come from introduced species brought from somewhere else, When they escape domestication and return to nature, they commonly have a harsh impact on native ecosystems and have even contributed to the extinction of many endemic species. So, now that we know the background, let's delve into some of the most iconic populations of feral animals around the world. We start our wild journey with pigs, which have turned out to be extremely successful if they manage to escape back into the wild. Highly invasive super pigs, or an ecological train wreck, as they've been immortalized in the media, have started to become a huge menace in Canada and the US.
The so-called super pig invasion.
Super pigs, the hard-to-eradicate animal, may be invading the United States soon.
Wildlife managers call this animal the worst invasive large mammal on the planet.
And they've been known to eat birds and even small deer. Experts say they are smart, elusive, and dangerous.
And as you can see, these animals have no problem adapting to cold weather.
A leading researcher says we've already missed the window to eradicate the pests and warns these hogs are a real risk to national parks.
Albertans are encouraged to squeal on pigs.
It sounds like they're just letting them go crazy. They're letting them go, Maggie, hog wild.
You just can't barbecue your way out of a wild pig problem.
These hard-to-eradicate feral pigs are self-made crossbreeds of wild Eurasian boars and domesticated swine. And they've adapted the best of both those lineages. They have the tenacious survival skills of wild boars, eating whatever they find while tearing up land as they root for food. They are smart, adaptable, and furry, which is essential for surviving harsh winters without a human-made shelter. They even dig what have been dubbed pigloos into the snow to hunker down and survive the cold. In addition to these wild boar qualities, super pigs also have the hyperfertility of their domesticated counterparts. By 4 to 8 months old, female super pigs are sexually mature and breed quickly, producing up to 12 super piggies a year. Super pigs will eat anything they can get their snouts around, from crops like corn, wheat, and canola, to insects, birds, reptiles, and even small mammals. They've been known to raid farms, and when they do, they come in trotters blazing. They storm in, frightening and scattering livestock, and proceed to demolish their food. In addition to tearing up the landscape in their insatiable search for sustenance, they also spread disease to the domestic swine that they terrorize. Neither pigs nor wild hogs are native to North America. Pigs were originally brought over in the 1500s by early colonizers. Wild boars, however, have a much more recent history, being brought into Canada in the 1980s and 90s to diversify livestock and as something novel to hunt. How the turntables... Australia had a similar issue with their feral pigs. Swine were brought over hundreds of years ago with the first colonists, and now over 45% of the mainland and several islands are plagued by these formerly domesticated pigs.
We were flying along the coast when we saw 3 large feral pigs and 1 young pig being followed by a dingo. As the hunt unfolds, you can see the damage to this country caused by the digging and rooting of feral pigs.
As every farm boy knows, pigs can't swim and don't want to learn. But although they said it couldn't be done, they didn't count on pig-headed determination. And once Missy got a taste of applause, all that natural ham took over.
On the slightly more sunny side of feral pigs, there are also the swimming pigs of an uninhabited island in the Bahamas called Big Major Key. While there are many stories circulating as to how these pigs ended up on this island, no one knows for sure how it was overtaken by water-loving pigs. Their population has been estimated to be around 50 to 60 individuals, and they have become a major tourist attraction. In an interesting twist, local residents of nearby islands now feed the swimming pigs. So these domesticated pigs who went feral have now come full circle and been tamed again.
Then man discovered that the wild horses roaming the plains could be tamed.
Moving across the barnyard now, let's talk about horses. Most of what we consider to be truly wild horses are actually just feral populations. There is only one remaining wild horse species, called the taki. also known as Przewalski's horse or the Mongolian wild horse. This endangered breed of wild horse is endemic to the steppes of Central Asia, and because it was never domesticated, is infamous for being hard to handle and impossible to ride. All of today's horse breeds that we consider wild in North America and Australia are actually just feral populations. Once they go feral, they revert back to their formerly wild state, roaming in groups of 5 to 15 individuals, led by a dominant stallion and his posse of mares and their young. The push and pull of domestication versus feralization is never far below the surface for horses, though. Feral males will often try and successfully recruit domesticated females, and feral horses are often captured and return quickly to a life of domesticity. Horses began to be domesticated about 6,000 years ago, and have since had feral populations all over most of the world. From the Americas, to Europe, to Asia, Africa, and Australia. In North America, horses were first introduced in the late 1400s with the earliest colonizers. By the 1600s, herds of millions of feral horses, called mustangs from the Spanish word mesteño, meaning wild, roamed all over North America. By the 1920s, mustangs were considered pests and were slaughtered indiscriminately. It wasn't until the 1970s when protections were introduced to save their dwindling populations. The Sable Island horses of Nova Scotia, Canada, are another species that we're attempting to bring back from the brink of extinction. Brought to the tiny island in the 1700s, these feral horses are now considered a naturalized species and part of the ecosystem of the island. In fact, visitors to the island are not permitted to feed, touch, or interact with the horses, which have been protected since 1961 and must stay at least 20 meters away from them at all times.
Wouldn't it be fun to find out more about farm animals?
Other farm favorites that have also rewilded themselves are cows and goats. Feral cows and goats exist throughout the world, on almost every continent, and, like many other feral species, threaten native species with their bad behavior. In both of these cases, overgrazing and spreading disease to other livestock is a major concern. Some feral cattle populations can even be quite aggressive towards humans. We can't talk about domestic animals returning to their wild selves without discussing the world's top pets turned pests, cats and dogs. Feral cats exist pretty much throughout the world and are categorized as individuals that actively avoid human contact. If you spend time with cats, you'll understand how their innate hunting skills, which are so adorable when they're attacking a catnip-filled toy, could translate to them becoming absolute apex predators in the wild. In Australia, feral cats are the main driver for the extinction of animals, including species like the rusty numbat, the desert bandicoot, the broad-faced potoroo, and the crescent nail-tail wallaby. Feral cats also put pressure on many species of lizards, birds, and frogs. For example, cats, along with human factors like trapping and overzealous burning of grasslands, caused the extinction of the paradise parrot. Cats are not native to Australia and showed up as pets of the first colonizers. Now, their feral ancestors cover almost 100% of the continent. While cats may be one of humanity's most beloved animals, they are also considered one of the most invasive and destructive species on Earth. Feral dog populations are also destructive the world over. Feral dogs aren't to be confused with stray dogs, since feral dogs are born in the wild and have had minimal, if any, contact with humans. These dogs return to their wild roots by running in packs, hunting and scavenging, and are difficult to train or handle, becoming quite aggressive when forced into contact with people. Like other feral species, feral dogs are also prone to spread disease. The dingoes of Australia, however, are an interesting example of long-ago feralization that has actually become beneficial to native ecosystems. New studies show that these dog ancestors were brought to Australia as domestic animals by most likely Asian seafarers around 3,500 years ago. Because they've had so much time to integrate into Australian ecosystems, dingoes actually now play a role in the preservation of native species.
We were witnessing a pretty remarkable event. A dingo at full pace hunting one of Australia's worst feral animals. To the best of our knowledge, this is an event that has never before been captured on video. It provides a pretty unique insight into the hunting behaviour of dingoes and the role of Australia's top predator. The young pig is pretty quick and evasive, and our dingo looks like an inexperienced hunter.
From the early 1800s until today, farmers have considered dingoes to be pests. But there are several ways dingoes protect endemic species. First and foremost, they kill and outcompete small predators, like feral cats and red foxes, which are both more recent invasive transplants. Dingoes also control the populations of herbivores, like kangaroos, reducing grazing pressures on grasslands. If you're starting to get the sense that Australia is riddled with feral animals, we haven't even gotten to the camels. From the 1870s to the 1920s, upwards of 20,000 camels were imported from the Arabian Peninsula, India, and Afghanistan to assist with expeditions into Australia's unforgiving outback.
At one time, nothing in science seemed so absurd as the supposition that there are people who live upside down with their feet above their heads.
The invention of motorized vehicles killed the camel industry in Australia, but the camels themselves remained and eventually became feral. Currently, there are over 1 million of these rewilded, single-humped ungulates wandering around the outback. But feral doesn't just have to mean animals. Plants too can become feral or de-domesticated. These are usually crops that have escaped cultivation and have become free-living populations. Much like the dingoes, these populations may be seen as a threat or a boon, depending on which researcher you speak to. It is frequently the case that feral crops threaten cultivated crops and can interfere with native ecosystems. In the US, for example, feral rice causes more losses to rice yields than the top 2 rice crop diseases. On the flip side, feral crops provide us with information about how these feral crops genetically evolve on their own, which has the potential to help us improve the breeding of their cultivated relatives. Perhaps like the dingo, when given a few thousand years, these feral populations of plants and animals will naturally integrate into their non-native environments. Until then, we have to live with the consequences of our actions and try our best to correct the havoc that feral populations have wreaked around the world.
This pig business was beginning to worry Johnny, and for a moment he began to wonder if he'd better change his ways.
Don't forget to subscribe to No Brainers. It's engaging and so much fun. Lucas and Laura might just change your mind about pigeons, so do yourself a favor and go subscribe to their channel. So what should we talk about next? Please let me know in the comments and be sure to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thanks for watching. See ya!